Try to imagine 720 people from 27 countries, speaking 24 different languages, trying to decide the fate of 449 million people. Do you think this can even work? Is this really the right way? And did you know that the European Parliament's constant commuting costs at least 100 million euros every year, which is why many call it a traveling circus? The icing on the cake is that this enormous expense could actually be saved if only one member state weren't so stubborn. Can you guess which country I'm talking about? In this video, we'll look at how and why the European Parliament was created. I'll show you who sits in it, what they do, and how the decisions are made that affect the lives of 500 million people every single day. Stay until the end, and I'll explain why the Parliament simply cannot operate in one single city, even though everyone wants it to. After the Second World War, Europe lay in ruins. Cities burned to the ground, millions lost their lives, families were torn apart. This was one of the darkest periods in history, the continent filled with fear and hatred. Everyone was searching for the same answer. How do we make sure this never happens again? Only one possible solution seemed right: unity. If somehow the countries could be bound together both economically and politically, then waging war against each other would simply be too costly and pointless. Since coal and steel were the two most important raw materials of war, what if a common European organization oversaw them? No coal and steel, no tanks and weapons. Peace, therefore, could be guaranteed through economic cooperation. This is how, in 1951, the European Coal and Steel Community was born, founded by 6 countries: France, West Germany, Italy, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. This was the predecessor of the institution we know today as the European Parliament. Members were sent by the national parliaments, and at first it was just an advisory body, basically a discussion circle. It had little influence over real matters, mostly debating and making suggestions, while the actual decisions were still made by governments in their own countries. In 1962, it received the name European Parliament. But the real breakthrough only came in 1979. That was when the first direct elections were held, where citizens could, with their own votes, decide who would represent them and their country. This was a huge turning point because from then on, the EP was no longer just an advisory body, but a true legislative institution. It became part of the lawmaking process, gained the power to oversee the budget, and could supervise the other EU institutions. But the Parliament also developed a strange habit that continues to this day. I will tell what is it in a moment. This video is sponsored by us. If you are an EU citizen and your girlfriend is from Southeast Asia, we can help you get a Schengen tourist visa for completely free. On lovevisa.eu, you'll find clear guides, proven templates, and all the practical tips we wish we had when going through the process ourselves. Their weird habit is that it operates in 2 cities at once: Brussels and Strasbourg. The daily work takes place in Brussels, but once a month, all the members move to the French city of Strasbourg for the plenary sessions. This constant traveling costs an enormous amount of money and time, and it's not good for the environment either. So why do they still do it? Many demand that there should be only one seat, but the founding treaties establish that Strasbourg is the official seat, Brussels is the place for committee meetings, and Luxembourg is the administrative center. To change this, all member states would need to agree. France, however, refuses to even consider it, since Strasbourg not only brings economic benefits to the city, but is also a symbol of Franco-German reconciliation. That's why the expensive and much criticized double seat remains in place to this day. Let's see how the European Parliament functions. At present, there are 720 members of the European Parliament, or MEPs, representing the EU's 27 countries. The number of representatives each country can send depends on its population. Germany is the largest with 96 MEPs, while Malta, Luxembourg, and Cyprus each send 6. Hungary has 21. Interestingly, the youngest MEP is 24 years old, while the oldest is 78. What makes the EP truly effective is that the MEPs don't sit in rows according to their country, but according to political ideology. This means that a Hungarian, German, and Spanish conservative are far more likely to sit on the same side than, say, 2 Hungarian politicians who pull in completely different directions. Currently, there are 8 such political groups, and each member joins the one whose ideology is closest to their own. But how do the MEPs actually get in? The EP is the only international body whose members we, the citizens, elect directly. This is unique in the world. Every 5 years, each member state holds its own election. Parties put forward lists, and voters decide who they want to see in the EP. The mandates are then distributed proportionally according to the votes received. What do they actually do? Many people think Brussels bureaucrats just drink coffee and sit through boring meetings. But in reality, this is one of the most important legislative bodies in the world. So what tasks do they carry out? First, legislation. The European Commission drafts the proposals, but they only become law if both the Parliament and the Council, representing the member states, approve them. For example, the abolition of roaming fees, environmental rules, or data protection are all issues where, without the EP's vote, there would be no unified EU regulations today. Second, budget control. The EP decides how the EU spends its money. It distributes subsidies to farmers, finances joint research, and funds huge infrastructure projects. Third, oversight of EU institutions. The EP approves, and if necessary can even reject, the President and members of the European Commission. If it feels the Commission is not doing its job properly, it can remove the entire body through a vote of no confidence. It can also launch inquiry committees and put citizens' petitions on the agenda. These decisions directly affect our daily lives. If the food on store shelves is safer, if the air is cleaner, or if railway connections are faster, the European Parliament had a hand in it. How does it work in practice? Through a concrete example. Let's look at a sensitive issue to see how an EU law is born. The Migration Pact. The Commission proposed renewing migration rules because the old system was no longer functioning well. This proposal went to both the Parliament and the Council. MEPs examined it thoroughly and debated it. They said, all right, but our proposal is that the distribution of migrants should be mandatory for every member state. By contrast, the Council, made up of representatives of national governments, wanted a more flexible solution. They suggested that member states could either accept migrants or contribute financially to running the system. Since the two bodies had different positions, a negotiation process began called a trilogue, where the Commission, the Parliament, and the Council all sat down at the same table. This process often lasts for years, filled with debates and compromises, but eventually an agreement was reached. The outcome was that member states can choose either to take in migrants or to contribute money to the system. The Parliament finally voted in favor, and with that, the EU gained a new, unified migration system. As you can see, the European Parliament is not a dull, faceless institution. It is a living, dynamic, sometimes controversial, but essential part of our daily lives. Its story began in the ruins of war, in the spirit of reconciliation and cooperation. And today, our directly elected representatives work to keep our continent safe and stable. Despite the debates and the expensive commuting, this is the place where 27 nations shape their future together, in peace. And since we're talking about parliaments, check out the next video too, where I share the fascinating history and hidden secrets of the Hungarian parliament.